In this series of short videos, we will suggest a new simple structure for a photon that will explain how it can appear massless, but still be affected by gravity. Why it always appears to travel at the speed of light in a vacuum, although, as we'll discuss it, may routinely be traveling faster than light. In the next episode, we'll suggest how this simple particle could result in a whole spectrum of different wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation, EMR, and demonstrate different properties. In later episodes, we'll explain why this particle might cause gravity, why the God particle mightn't be needed to start the Big Bang, and why time may not have started with the Big Bang. Maybe we'll find out where all the antimatter has gone, what dark matter and dark energy are, and perhaps see how big space really is. If you're interested, keep watching and press the like button and subscribe to the series. Thank you. And so, on to the first episode. Have you ever wondered why something that has no mass could be affected by gravity? If you look in Wikipedia at the definition of a photon, it defines it as an elementary particle that is a quantum of the electromagnetic field, including electromagnetic radiation such as light and radio waves, and the force carrier for the electromagnetic force. Photons are massless, so they always move at the speed of light in vacuum, 299,792,458 meters per second. Let's start with part of this definition, namely, photons are massless. That's a strange conclusion. It is true that the mass of a photon has never been measured, but not that the photon definitely has no mass. There is an enormous difference between these two statements. Surprisingly, it should be possible to have a theoretical particle that will display the qualities of a photon and have a mass that can't be measured. Equally, it should also be possible to construct a particle that is capable of producing different frequencies of electromagnetic radiation, EMR, without changing its basic structure. Perhaps the most surprising fact is that such a particle is already known and produced in a process called pair production. This is where energy is turned into an electron and positron, which then immediately self-annihilate, because one is matter, the other antimatter, one has a positive charge, the other a negative charge. So when they contact each other, they cancel each other and produce only energy. As this pair of particles have identical masses, if they could be rotated about each other until the centrifugal effect would be exactly equal to the attraction between the positive and negative charges. The result should be a particle that does not immediately self-annihilate. Particles that did not rotate at the correct velocity would either fly apart if the rotation is too fast, or self-annihilate if the rotation is too slow. Either way, they would self-annihilate and produce energy that would once again be used in pair production. This is a video representation of such a process happening. The ball of energy wishes to obey the second law of thermodynamics and equalize the energy with its surrounding space by ejecting energy. It can't use conduction nor convection to achieve this, and so uses radiation. Space. This lowers the total amount of energy in the ball of energy. It's interesting that the photon describes a double helix as it flies away from the energy source. The next question for today's video is, how could the photon be seen as massless? When photons containing electrons and positrons impact upon matter, they would immediately self-annihilate, producing only energy with no measurable mass. The other part of Wikipedia's definition, after they are massless, is that they will always travel at the speed of light. This assumption is probably the greatest problem that this new theory faces, because the mathematics will assume that because the photon has zero mass and a velocity of approximately 300 million meters per second, if any mass is present in the photon, the kinetic energy in the particle will be enormous. However, if the concept of the photon containing matter or antimatter is correct, the kinetic energy of the photon is irrelevant because the particles cease to exist upon impact with matter. This being the case, the mathematics would be wrong. The energy in the photon would be the annihilation energy of matter and antimatter neutralizing each other, plus kinetic energy from the spinning particles rotating about each other and traveling together at the speed of light. This would be equal to the creation energy of the photon. In this instance, the photon's mass would remain constant and the velocity would be variable as the frequency of light changes. So the Newtonian kinetic energy equation, namely energy equals half mass times velocity, would seem to be appropriate. Einstein's famous E equals mc squared equation can't be used because in this, the velocity, c, is constant, and it's the mass, or at least the energy associated with the mass that changes, so it certainly could not be used to calculate the kinetic energy of a binary particle. If the two particles are rotating around each other, they would not only have forward motion, but also rotation velocity, as well as energy associated with their spins. This would mean that the particles comprising photons would always have a velocity in a vacuum greater than the speed of light. In order to simplify the definition of the photon, let's call it a binary particle, as this seems to describe its structure more adequately. So that's the video for today. We have a particle structure that would exhibit all the major qualities attributed to the photon, but would have mass that couldn't be measured. It would be created from energy and return to energy upon contact with matter. Coincidentally, it would be the second time that a double helix has become the basis for life in the universe. In later videos, we'll see that the higher energy photons would also appear massless, not because they will self-annihilate, but because they are incredibly stable and will penetrate matter's atomic structure without causing any direct influence on the matter involved. The mathematics and physics about light are well known, and the concept of this video challenges most of these. Using existing physics equations based upon the idea that a photon has no mass as an argument would not move the conversation forward. All positive criticism is welcome, particularly mathematical. Don't forget to like and share this video. Hit the bell icon if you'd like to get notified when a new video is released. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.